Relax, the keyboard is off and the press box is closed, but the mic is just getting warmed up. Welcome to the Hockey Writers Ink, the show where the writer is fresh off the presses and the ink is not dry. Join your host, Lance Green, the guardian of the blue paint turned writer, and co-host SteelFlyers, as we bring you all the latest on the Philadelphia Flyers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hockey Writers Ink, a Philadelphia Flyers-centric podcast with your host, Mr. Lance Green. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. Ready to talk some Flyers hockey for sure.
Oh, man. I'll tell you what, I'm ready to talk some Flyers hockey. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to talk about some Flyers hockey, right?
Yeah, going to talk, I think, as always, a lot about some truths that seem to be made more evident after I wrote my latest article. So we'll get into that, I think.
Yeah, I think we're gonna, for sure. So, first of all, I would like to say a big thank you to Spreaker for all your help in getting us out there, for allowing us to be on every single podcasting platform, which all you guys have to do is go to your favorite podcasting platform like Google or iHeart or Apple and type in Hockey Writers Ink onto your keyboard there in your search, and Hockey Writers Ink will come up, and then you give us a 5-star rating. And by the way, thank you all for doing that, man. Giving us a top 15 in all of Flyers podcasts. We are ranked number 11th. So thank you all very much for that, man. That is so awesome. We really appreciate the support. That's all because of you guys out there doing just that, finding us out there on your favorite platforms and giving us those 5-star ratings. So thank you guys very much for that. We really appreciate that too. So big thank you to everyone out there for doing that, and big thank you to Spreaker. And, of course, big thank you to the great Lance Green, the writer extraordinaire, the guardian of the blue paint turned writer. I mean, he's got so many nicknames now, you know. But he released out a great article that we're going to talk about for sure. So here we go, folks. Let's get right into it. We're getting episode 140. I know, right? I wrote that down and I was like, wow. Episode 140. I would have never have thought, Lance, that we would have done this many episodes. Almost 2 years now we've been doing this.
Yeah,
right?
My wife reminds me every time we have to do one. Yeah, you got to go do that again. Yes, I do.
I'm with you. Like you're on again with Lance tonight, right? I'm like, yep, on with Lance tonight.
yeah.
So, but I'll tell you what, the Batman and Robin of Flyers podcasts are here, and we're ready to take care of business with episode number 140. And the best offense could be a good defense for the Flyers this season. And Lance, this was the complete center of your article, was that exact theme and title right there. And I loved it because this article was just another fine example of the beauty of your writing. And I'm not trying to say that just to be, trying to shine you on or anything like that, but you always have a structure to the article. You always have a beginning, a middle, and an end. I appreciate those types of attention to detail. And not only that, but there's details in the article that you need to be paying attention to. Okay? So this is one of the reasons why I love your writing, the reasons why we do this show, man, because you're so brilliant at what you do, and I love the articles, and this one is really no joke, folks. Because, let's face it, the Flyers do not have offense.
Well, at least not the kind that is needed to compete with, some of the top teams in not only the Eastern Division, but, of course, the NHL as well. Since nowadays they face all the teams rather than just, the Islanders and the Devils 45 times a season.
But they are facing all the other teams, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
And But I understand that it doesn't matter necessarily about the Western Conference teams because obviously it's non-conference games, and those don't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Mhm.
But if you can win those games, those are good points to have at the end of the year. Things might be close in your own division.
Yep.
So, all
So
right, talk to
yeah,
me, Lance.
let's break this article down for sure. The reason why I wrote this article is just everybody's hyped this time of year, right? I am too. I'm excited to see the Flyers get back on the ice and get going. But I live in reality, folks. The Flyers have some great draft picks. You know, with the guys we have in the system, from the Tyson Forresters to the Cutter Gauthiers to the Mishkovs now, there's people coming, right? There's people coming that are going to help this offense, but they're not here quite yet. Maybe Tyson Forrester, maybe if he makes the team, if he has a good showing the rest of this camp.
Yeah.
But he's not gonna, even if he shows up, he's not going to take this team and score 30, 40 goals this season. Hopefully he will, but probably won't. And I got thinking, when was the last time the Flyers really had an offensive talent, elite level talent, that maybe scored 50 goals in a season? Because there's guys out there on different teams doing that, right? Um,
Wait a minute.
well, that
The last time the Flyers had a 50-goal scorer.
50 goal scorer.
Well, it
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was in
That,
a long time ago
yeah,
in a
that was
galaxy
25
far,
years
far
ago.
away.
25 years ago, they had a
Yeah,
guy named John
John
LeClaire,
LeClaire.
who is now special advisor to hockey operations with the Flyers. That a great signing and a bring in there, to help this franchise
Yeah,
get
we'll
back
take
on the
that
right
all day.
track. So, but that was the last time he scored three consecutive 50-goal seasons. The last being a 51-goal season in the 97-98 campaign. Now, when was the last time some Flyer scored 100 points? That one's a little bit more recent. You may remember that as
Oh,
being Claude
okay, Claude
Giroux
Giroux.
in the 17-18 campaign with 102 tallies on
Yeah.
the score sheet. All right, but
Is that
that's
the only time he
but
made it to 100? He's crested like 90 a couple of times.
yeah, and some
Yeah,
80s, but
yeah.
yeah, but that's the last time a Flyer has hit the 100 point plateau. So in saying that, these guys that are potentially coming up the pike that we just mentioned, especially Mishkov. Everybody's big on Mishkov right now, but they're still 2, 3 seasons away at least from
At
joining the
least,
Flyers.
at
So
least.
what are the Flyers to do? They
You
dealt
mean
some
now?
contracts
What are they
now
to do
this
now?
season.
Yeah,
This season,
yeah.
we can't live for 3 seasons from now, right?
No.
We have to figure out what we can do now to counteract the lack of offense. Because, as good as the Owen Tippets are and all that, he needs more help. He needs more help if the Flyers are going to compete. And, you know, in this article, like Steele said, you really got to go read it because there's so many facts that I put into this to back this up. It's kind of mind-boggling, and you really have to slow down and read this just to really get how bad this team potentially was last season and how bad they could be this season offensively. Um,
You know what
and
though, Lance? Do you know what though, Lance? I gotta tell you something though. It's kind of ironic that you mentioned this article, that you wrote this article, that
right,
that one of the weakest parts of the Flyers over the last 4 seasons has been exactly something that you need them to be a strength this year, and that's their defense.
right,
And I think that's nailing it right there on the head. Because how do you do that with the group of guys that you have now? Do you know what I mean? I remember when the Flyers used to have 9, 10 guys that each had 20 goals for the season. Where's that? That's not going to happen this year, next year. But you need to have that good defense. And let's face it, the last 4 years, the defense for the Flyers has been utterly, atrociously porous.
Well, yeah. I mean, we'll take last year's numbers. The Flyers finished offensively only scoring 220 goals. That's an average of 2.68 goals per game, ranking them 29th offensively in the league. All right, not good. In
Wow. Wait,
comparison,
hold on. No, wait, hold on. They were 29th? That means there
29th.
was three teams worse.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Chicago was pretty bad,
Yeah,
but
Arizona
they,
was pretty bad too. Yeah, all
they,
right.
yeah, they got some dividends behind that. But
Okay.
in comparison, the Oilers, on the other hand, were their top scoring team. Imagine that because they have two amazing superstars. But they scored 325 goals last season, equating to just shy of 4 goals a game that they were able to score.
Well,
Now, if you do the math, the Flyers were off the pace by 105 goals. All right, that is a lot. So this offense needs some help. And
yeah, but you don't even have to go. You don't even have to go that far, right? You don't even have to go to the most highest scoring offense to see how much difference the goal differential is between the Flyers and say, you know, the teams that they need to contend with, like Boston, like Tampa Bay, like Pittsburgh, like New Jersey, like what? What?
we'll get there. We'll get there. But in saying that, the best offensive player last season for the Flyers was Travis Konechny. I think hands down,
Oh yeah,
everybody would agree he had a great year for him.
yep.
But even in
Under
saying that,
Tortorella.
right, under Tortorella, he kind of regained that offensive prowess rather than being just that pest that he was the past couple of years.
But he was that too. Like he had his game back. You
Yeah,
know, like
that's
he
part
looked
of
like,
his game.
yeah, he looked like the Travis Konechny that was kind of like right before the bubble and then kind of
Mhm.
during the bubble. Like he was real chippy, but yet he was putting the puck in the back of the net.
But he could score, right? And now he got back on pace there, regardless of the fact that Cam Atkinson was out as well as Sean Couture. But we'll get there. And but anyway, Travis Konechny scored 31 goals last year. In comparative to that, he was 45th or 46th overall in the NHL in goals. So there's guys on other team, multiple guys on other teams that had more goals than he did. It wasn't even one of the highest scores on 32 teams there,
Yeah,
right?
right. Because it was only
Uh,
31 goals. You know, so
right, 31 goals, right? So Connor McDavid, on the other hand, led the league with 64 lamplighters, an amazing talent in itself. So that means that
it's double.
Travis Konechny could take this year's totals, and he could score 31 again, matching his career high in goals
Still
this
not.
season, and still not add up to what McDavid was able to produce just last season.
I mean,
So
I don't put Konechny though in that same boat of talent
no, I
and
don't. I don't.
everything else
But
like that.
right. But in saying that, the Flyers need somebody. Nobody's going to be a Connor McDavid. He's a generational type player. But you need somebody that can get up to that 40 or 50 goal mark because a lot of teams have them, guys,
Yeah.
but we don't. We haven't had one since John LeClair. We haven't had an elite level player since Eric Lindros. You could make a snuff for Jeff Carter, but he was too busy partying when he was in Philly and got traded out of here. So imagine that. But taking it one step further, Konechny scored 61 points on the season last year, tying a career high, which was great. But he was 91st in the league in
In
points,
points.
right? McDavid led the league again. He led the league with 153 points last year. 92 points off the pace Konechny was.
Okay, but like what but if you bring it down into, reality land,
Right.
he's still 30
No way
points.
off.
he's still 30 points off. He only scored 60. So and most of the people that are ranked way ahead of him all scored like
90s,
90,
80, 85s.
80s.
Yeah.
Okay, so
League team leaders we're talking about. Team leaders
yeah,
are
yeah.
getting up to that 80, 90, 100 point plateau every year. And
And they're
and
not
we
even
got a
yeah.
60-point player.
And
You know,
they're not even the McDavids and the Dreisaitl's and the Sidney Crosbys and the
right.
and you know the Stamkoses and stuff like that of the world. Do you know what I mean? It's like what there's all these
And
teams that have these goal scorers. Well, where's
right.
ours?
Where's ours, right? And this wasn't at all a knock on Konechny because I mean the man is producing career numbers,
Yeah.
so great on him. Scored career high in goals, tied career high in points. But in saying that, what do the Flyers have to rely on here? Because they traded away uh, defenseman and Ivan Provorov. They traded away uh, Kevin Hayes. All right, he was
Right.
our all-star, our only all-star.
Right.
Didn't do
JVR's
too much for
off.
the last 24 games. JVR was let go and chose not to re-sign. I think the team, chose that as well. But he was the leading goal scorer for the 21-22 campaign. So, in a sense, we
With
we
21
actually
goals.
right. The Flyers could actually be worse offensively than they were last season. But a lot of people have faith in a 12-year veteran coming back in Sean Couturier, who has had multiple back surgeries since he last played on December 18th of 2021. Some at the time of the article, 640 some days ago.
20 months.
That is a amazingly long time to be off the ice, to suddenly bounce back and be expected to be a team leader in points and all that. I mean, he's a leader on the ice when he's on the ice, but when has he been on the ice lately? That's been a big issue as well, as them having a lot of faith in a 34-year-old Cam Atkinson that did not play at all last season due to undergoing a serious neck injury where he had to have a surgery on said uh, issue. So I, for one, am not putting all my eggs in that basket to say that these two are going to be the savior of this team next season, this upcoming season here. Do I wish them all the best? Do I wish to see them get out there and be able to play 82 games? Yes, but these injuries, just because they can come back and skate, doesn't mean they're essentially going to be 100%.
I'm going to tell you right now, man, we saw this with Farabee, and I think we even saw this too with
Right.
Jack Eichel, even too, because Jack
Sure.
Eichel had the same procedure that Farabee did. And it took Eichel a good portion of the year before he was right, before he
Yeah.
started. Because if you notice that when Vegas got hot, it was right when he started playing much better, and so he pretty much carried that all the way through to the playoffs and got him on the Stanley Cup. Okay, so we saw this with Joe Farabee too, where yeah he came back,
Hmm.
but he was
He wasn't that
only
same
like
presence. Yeah.
yeah he was only like 60% of Joel Farabee. And
Mm.
man, look, I remember when Joel Farabee came back for his second campaign after putting on like 16, 17 pounds of muscle, and man,
Hmm.
he was like up there competing for the lead in goals for the team. Okay,
Yep.
and so I really think that we started to see that towards the end of the season last year
Mhm.
as Farabee got more healthy, if you want to call it.
Sure.
Do you know what I'm
Sure.
saying? So I really think that we're going to see the same things with Sean Couturier if he does play any kind of, time. Cam Atkinson, if he does play any kind of time, you know what I mean? this is the kind of injuries where you don't just come back after having this injury and everything's copacetic. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've seen there's evidence that it's taken a player a number of months to get into that. I don't want to call it hockey shape, but get back to
It's
where they
different. It's a
were.
lot different. Yeah.
But get back to where they were before they had the surgery. I mean, you never come back 100% from when you have a surgery, but you come back to a certain level. Do you know
Yeah,
what I
definitely
mean?
not in your 30s either, that you're going to snap back to what you were before. You just don't heal the same anymore as you did when you were 22, 23 years old. But in saying all this, the Flyers, you would think, would stress their defense, and ensure that that defense is that much better. Now, like we said, it's going to be a lot different look on that defensive back end this season. Ivan Provorov, the big time minute eater, is gone. But let's face it, he was a career minus 28 anyway. He wasn't doing elite things defensively. Um,
True.
he just
Played a
ate
lot of
up a lot of
minutes.
minutes, played a lot of minutes. He was the
Yeah.
best that we had. He wasn't essentially a number one. He was our number one, but he'd be a good number two or number three on a good team.
Yeah.
Um, then you look at Tony DeAngelo being bought out. He finished last season a minus 27 after going a plus 30 with Carolina in their defensive unit because they are a defensively focused team.
Go
Um,
figure.
I think that hid his flaws a lot playing with those type of Brett Pesci and everything that he was able to do down in Carolina. The Flyers found out, the real um, player that he was in
Not
D'Angelo,
so
but
good.
not so good. Not as good as the $5 million they paid him, that's for sure. And of course, they decided not to sign back the 36-year-old Justin Braun, who has essentially gone on into the
Retired.
light and retired and got the heck away from the Flyers,
Yay!
thankfully. Thankfully.
Yay! But you know what
Um,
though? You know what they did though? What how old is Mark Stahl, man? What is he? 36, 37?
well, he is a journeyman, but he did prove last year that he could still help out the team. And Florida had nothing but good things to say about him as he helped a lot of the younger guys there
Yeah.
develop. And so, in saying that, yeah, the Flyers brought in Mark Stahl, and they brought in another veteran defenseman who I feel is underrated in a sense, in Sean Walker, who they got in the Provorov deal from L.A.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really like what he's bringing to the table. I think he does kind of bring some of that veteran leadership as well to show you how to be a pro kind of thing.
Yeah,
His game is gonna, I think his game is gonna translate well, especially with Tortorella. But I'll tell you what, man. Here's the bright star. I really think um, I'm really excited about is the Helgi Grans, which was also part of the Provorov trade as well too, man.
hmm
Everything that I've seen of this young player when he was with the Kings and now that he's been playing with the Flyers now and whatever I've seen of him so far has been, yeah, I want to see more.
yeah. Big fan of his for since before he got drafted. Um,
And you know,
plays
we
again
all
the
know about those kind of guys, right? Because we follow all
yeah,
those young players, man.
yeah, for sure. Big guy, clears the front of the net, physical when needed, just a solid
Yep.
defenseman,
Yep. Good
and
head on his shoulders.
good head on his shoulders. He looked well in rookie camp. Um, really looked calm on the ice, a calming presence on that back end when some of the
Yeah.
other young guys, just threw the puck away or passed it a little too early or something like that. He held on to it, made the correct play.
Yep.
Um, if he was playing in front of me, I would definitely breathe some fresh air when he stepped on the ice.
Sigh of relief.
A sense of relief. Yeah.
Yeah.
for
Coming from the
sure,
goalie
because
himself, you know.
he is that kind of defenseman. He is going
Yeah.
to help out the
Which is why
goaltending a
we like
lot,
him. Which is why
right?
we like him. You know what I mean?
So
So
yep. So I think he's definitely jumped to um, towards the top of the Flyers defenseman prospects, and possibly we should see him in a Flyers uniform. Um, at some point this season, with injuries and all that, I think he does come up, and he's going to be a hard guy to send back down.
I think one of those guys is gonna make the team
I hope so. I hope so.
because based off of what everything that we heard from
Mhm.
Danny Briere, even from Stahl himself, said that look, he's probably not gonna play in every single game,
Mhm.
and they're looking for him to be more of the mentor type. Extension of the coaching staff is what I believe I saw the quote as being, right, for Stahl.
Mhm.
So, I
Well, in a sense too, I think the guy on the bubble really is going to be Nick Seeler. Um, he is a quality guy that can go up and down and go play either side of the ice. And as much problem on defense
yeah,
that the Flyers had, he really was able to kind of bring some stability to that third pairing.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you, but in this sense, you know, um, I'd rather see a kid get some ice time um, rather than just have a mediocre defenseman out there who's been a bubble guy, AHL, NHL guy his whole career.
Send
I'd
him
rather
out.
see I'd rather see a Helgi Grans, a Emil Andre, a Jennings, a Ronnie Attard, a Zumala, somebody get some significant minutes or variation of all of them. Really, I could care less. Whoever's hot at the moment, get some time in the NHL because let's face it, this season, I don't see the Flyers being, competitive right out the gate. It's gonna take they're gonna take some bumps and bruises this season again. Are they going to be better than last year? Let's hope so. But
Maybe.
it all depends on the health of Sean Couture and everything else that's going to go along with it. And the development of some of these younger players, um, being able to
Along.
come up and take some time away there. But in saying that too, some of these players that we just mentioned are going to be at some point with York and Bonk for the future of this franchise on the back end. And that is really why I would like to see these guys get an extended look in training camp here, which some of them have. Emil Andre has played tonight as we're filming this, and the previous game. Not really solid on defense, although the Devils definitely played heavily NHL lineup
You don't
when they got
think?
spanked by them 7-0. But and New York definitely has Barzell and stuff in tonight, so they're getting a real look at what they're capable of doing up against NHL talent. So kudos to Torts for keeping these guys in here and not trying to get a win in preseason just to get a win, putting in, your NHL players. I'd rather actually see some of these
Someone's gonna
prospects
win.
play against some NHL players and see how they stack up, see if they can hang, right? Because in the long run, this defensive core has got to be better. They've struggled for a long time, and their goaltending is showing that. Carter Hart is not lived up to the hype of what he was supposed to be when drafted. And now we got Cal Peterson in making $5 million, and he had a horrible showing against New Jersey, letting in 6 of the 7 goals
Yeah.
that game. And he's looked great in practice and everything else in training camp. But
Well,
you know, in game, he it's one game obviously, but he didn't look the greatest, and he was kind of held out to dry there with a less than stellar defensive cast out there in front of him versus some very good, players, NHL players. So um, the Flyers have got to do better, and that's what this article is about. They got to be defensively sound until some of these younger offensive top five picks, um, first round picks, continue to develop into being something on an everyday Flyers lineup. And
yeah,
it
man.
could be a couple of years down the road, and
I
you know
definitely think it's going to be.
I think that somebody has to step up here. And in saying that as well, I think there is one thing that the Flyers could do at the start of this season to really help out the center position, which is, we know, kind of a third defenseman. They're supposed to get back and help out, defensively, and get the breakout started sometimes. And in saying that, I would really like to see Scott Lawton move back to center. I think he is a much better shutdown center that is going to be needed this year with this less than stellar offensive cast and young defensive core. I think they're going to need him defensively. Um, he can win faceoffs. He's a lot better at it than Frost. Um, he forechecks like
Clearly.
crazy.
Yep.
He's not afraid to do what he has to do.
Got a
And
motor. I don't ever see him take anything off or nothing.
right. And I think Frost could play wing. He wasn't really successful at it before, but I think his numbers were definitely inflated last year, being that Sean Couturier was out and Kevin Hayes was kind of in towards his doghouse most of the year. So
Yeah.
he got a lot of ice time, and I don't think he's going to get that much ice time, even if he stayed center. Um, being that Sean Couturier's back, and also he's going to get less time on the power play as well, and his numbers are not going to just be the same. I would like to see him slide back over to wing and let Scott Lawton take the majority of the faceoffs and be that structured defensive center. Because if you think about it, you have Sean Couturier, a Selke Ward winning, centerman. You would have Scott Lawton. You would have Noah Cates, who did great playing center last year and really stood up against Malkin and some of these offensemen from these
Yeah. I have
other
no
teams. He
problems with
shut
Noah
them down,
Cates. Yeah, yeah.
right? And I really think Ryan Poling is defensively sound as well. He's going to solidify that fourth center role. Along with Hathaway coming in, that fourth line is going to be really hard to play against, and get Couturier, Lawton, and Cates some minutes off of the ice to be able to catch their breath. And I think that should help out as well. But I, the direction that Keith Jones and Danny Briere want to take this team is, they said, in a direction that is going to make the team harder to play against. And I
Well, see,
think,
that's where I think that's where they're coming from the whole
right,
way.
right,
Look, you're not going to win a lot of games with this lineup. Let's face it, you're really not. I mean, everybody's being optimistic, including us. We're just as optimistic as everybody else. We really feel that this team could potentially take steps in the right direction this year. It all depends on big ifs. If Couturier can be healthy and stay in play, even if he's 80% of his former self, can Atkinson
Cam
play?
Atkinson.
He did. He was supposed to play and then didn't. Okay, for the New Jersey game. So what's going on with that? You know what I
Mm,
mean? So what? Uh, there's a lot of ifs here, and the basic, when you get down to the brass tacks of things, is that this lineup is going to be really young. And the best thing that you could possibly hope for is just exactly with what Lance was talking about, what he said in his article, what he wrote about in his article, what he just discussed about is, you got to have a much better defense, because clearly you can't count on goaltending because it's not getting it done, and clearly you're not going to be able to count on offense to win you the games, because you have one guy who scored 31 goals. One guy, right? Who was the next closest guy? Right? It was JVR, right? At like 17, and what was Joel Farabee at? Like 16, 15, something like that. I mean, you're not gonna be winning a lot of games when you have guys that have only that many goals. You're really not, okay? And it clearly shows, because with 220 goals for the whole year, even against teams that you need to compete against, you don't need to be the Edmontons and have 350 goals, but man, you need to be at least, more than 220. You need to be closer to 300, I would think, to try to be, but
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Owen Tippett, like I said early on last season, I really think he, made a big improvement. He had 27 goals and 49 points last season. Great, but even him, he was still a minus 17. So, as many points as he put on the board, he was on the ice for more of the other team scoring. So, defensively, this team has to get better. More guys than not were minus players. Noah Cates was a +3. Nick Seeler was a +1. Yeah. Other than that, Tyson Forrester played only 7 games. He was a +2. Uh,
yeah, but they're
that's
not
it.
like,
That's it.
yeah,
That's it on the roster.
yeah,
There's nobody.
that's
There's nobody really that stood out that helped defensively. So, like you're saying, they're not scoring enough. They didn't score enough points. They have to regroup and refocus and play a better system, because a
defense.
better defense, because the system works if you have the right pieces. Torts' system is supposed to be helpful for the goalies and more defensively sound on the back end first. But it's not going to be that if you don't have the people to play the system, that fit the system. And
We're
I
slowly
don't see it
getting
on this
there.
roster.
Right, the Flyers are
Slowly.
slowly getting there. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think you're going to have, this is going to be that growing pain year. You,
Sure. That's
you
what
know,
that's what I said. They gotta focus because they're not gonna score the goals. They have to get the defense and buy into it, because they're gonna if they're gonna win some games, they're gonna have to be close ones, because they're not gonna
it's
score
the
a
only
lot of
way.
goals. They're gonna be a lot of 2-1 games. They're gonna be a lot,
Three to
you know,
two or whatever.
3-2, whatever the case may be. They're not lighting the lamp that much with the people that are out there. So they better
Do you know
play
what?
some defense.
You know what, Lance? That is actually very ironic that we say this and talk about this, because if you look at historically the last 4 years where the Flyers defense is ranked, okay, historically, where the goals against, the shots against, do you know what I mean? The all of those metrics numbers are very pointed in the other direction for the Flyers. Okay, they rank down near the bottom of the NHL in the last 4 years. Okay, so the best way to fix that is to play a good defensive game. Okay, you draft players like the Mitchkoffs, like the Cutters, guys that can shoot and score goals and stuff like that, and they're coming. But while before they get here, you need to build on that defense, and you need to build that foundation of that defense. Okay, and that's exactly what Lance is talking about in this article. The Flyers right now have an opportunity to build defensively for this season and try and be a better defensively sound team than anything else. Because if at least you have that, that will potentially keep you in games. If
Hmm.
you don't have to constantly hang your goalie out to dry because your defense is just constantly giving up on average 10 to 15 point blank shots a game, you're not going to win games like that.
No.
You're really not. You know what I'm saying? And so to have some of this defense needs to take the next step. Some of this defense needs to be a young player that is potentially going to be that guy that's like the Helgi Grans guy, or like the Emil Andres, or like the Ronnie Atards, that might surprise and say, "Hey, I'm giving you a reason why you can't let me go back." Do you know what I'm saying? I really feel that's going to happen this year, and I really feel that it needs to happen this year, because you need to give that player an opportunity. I would much rather see that type of player than, like you said, a Nick Sealer or anybody else. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because look, it's now. You got to put these young guys in now when the team is not good, when you're trying to build from the very bottom up. You got to have these young guys in now, because when you lose together, that makes you want to win together. Okay?
Right. So
Let's talk
let's
about,
move on here.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk about the game against. Let's not talk about that.
It was bad. The Flyers just lost again, 2-1 to the Range or to the Islanders. I'm sorry, New York team, got my New York teams mixed up. The Islanders. Ryan Poling scoring the only goal the Flyers had. Again, they're gonna struggle to score. They don't have all their pieces. I get that. It's a preseason game, but they're gonna struggle to score. But
And even the Islanders played last night, but they had
mm,
kind of different group of guys in tonight too. So I mean, it's really tough to judge preseason, to be honest with
mhm,
you. But and here's something else that we have to factor in that I don't think anybody else is kind of looking at, Lance, and that's this: a lot of these guys haven't played together. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you've had a group of guys come in and play in development camp. Cool. And you've had some guys now in training camp now for what? We're a week in, less than a week in. You know what I
mhm.
mean? These guys haven't even hardly spent that much time together on the ice, practicing or playing with each other. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of guys' faces that aren't here anymore now, and there's a lot of new faces that are here now.
Mhm.
Or that are potentially going to be sticking around, this year instead of what they were last year. Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right.
And
Go ahead.
here's something I want to talk about and get your interpretation on because I'm scratching my head on this one. Um, the Flyers goaltending situation and the signings. So, of course, the Flyers we talked about have Carter Hart. They have Cal Peterson making $5 million.
That's
Carter
it.
Hart making $4 million this season. You got Felix Sandstrom, who's still on the books.
Don't forget
That
Harrison, who signed.
I've never really been that impressed with.
No.
You got Harrison, who re-signed and after this season is going to make $1.4 million for 2024 through 2026. Um, you had Danny Briere sign Alexei Kozlov, who they drafted, a 21-year-old guy who they drafted
Yeah.
previously. Okay, well he's in the KHL. Why sign him? Why feel the need to sign him at this point? Sign him after the season or something. Um, I don't know why you're going to waste a year of eligibility and all that good stuff. And then they just turned around and signed the 18-year-old kid who they moved up in the draft to select,
Yeah.
Carson uh, Bjorn. I don't know how do you say that, but so
Bjarnason.
I Bjornson. I really don't
Carson
get.
Bjarnason.
I really don't get why they felt they had to sign this guy. He's 18 years old. He's playing in Canadian juniors. He's going to go back to Canadian juniors. He cannot go to the Phantoms because he's 18 and he's owned currently by um, the the junior team in Canada. So there is a stipulation that they have to go back at that point if they're not playing for the Flyers. He's not going to be playing for the Flyers. They're loaded up with goalies up here. So why sign him at this point, Steele? I really don't get it. Is that just a feel-good move? Because, I mean, the kid's 18 years old. Most goalies don't
Sign.
come to play till they're at least 22,
24,
23
yeah.
years old.
I don't know what the deal is. You know what? I wonder if it might have something to do with the whole Fedotov thing. And do you know what else? I think that this whole Canadian Federation thing really put a scare into the Flyers of potentially Carter Hart not being there. And so I think all of these moves are being made with that end goal in mind, or not end goal, but like they're all
Mm-hmm.
like just in case Carter Hart's going to get suspended or we can't move him, or if we do trade him, maybe some of these other goalies are fodder. I can't. It doesn't make any sense that you would move up in the draft to pick a player who wasn't even the best rated goalie at the time that he was drafted.
I mean, they had him. They had him listed very high. I didn't. I
We
don't like
didn't.
his style. I don't like his style of play. His numbers in juniors definitely didn't jump off the page at you. Um, I mean, maybe he has some good qualities. He's a good kid, but there was definitely some other goalies that I would have taken before
Me
him,
too.
and I definitely wouldn't have moved up to select him when there was definitely some better defensemen and other names
Other, yeah.
on the board that I would definitely rather have before him.
All day
Yes,
long.
do the Flyers need a goaltender? Yes, but I mean, if you look at that guy up in Buffalo right now, that Devon Levi that was drafted in the seventh round out of a little teeny Canadian uh, minor juniors all those years ago, and then he only won the Mike Richter Award twice in the NCAA, and is now going to be pretty much probably the starter for Buffalo. You can find a goalie late,
Or even
and
Peretz. I mean, Peretz was even at the Flyers facility.
right. Yeah, last season, he attended developmental camp and rookie camp and stuff like that, and the Flyers let him walk
Lance,
and
can I
didn't
tell you
give him a
something?
contract, and
Dude,
and the kid went out and won a national championship.
dude, I'm going to tell you something, man, okay? Of the goalies that the Flyers have signed, drafted, or whatever the case is, the
Mm,
fact that they let Peretz walk and they drafted these other guys and brought in these other guys, it to me it's unfathomable that they
yeah,
would let such a talent like Peretz go
yeah,
and bring in much lesser talent in these goaltenders and what they've done. I'm with you, bro. I'm scratching my head too, man, because at one point the Flyers had the goalie carousel where we couldn't keep a goalie healthy, right?
right.
And then we didn't have that many in the sitting back in the wings at the turnstile. And then we
Mm,
tried to get one, and then the Russians was like, "No, you can't have him." So now we're like, oh, and now this potential thing hanging over Carter Hart and blah 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 and blah 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 blah. And it's like there's, I understand why Danny Beer is doing this, but some of it I just don't get. You don't need
yeah.
that many goalies. You don't need somebody that's not nearly as good as somebody that you could have gotten who was better, even at that same position.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? That's what kills me
And
about
is going to be
this.
ready to go that much sooner.
Oh gosh,
I
man.
don't get it. It makes me scratch my head on this because I mean, uh, the Flyers have a lot of contracts that they don't really want, that they gotta wait a year or two to get rid of. But why are you signing and wasting the open spots that we do have because you can only hold so many contracts?
Yeah.
Um, why are you wasting one of them on an 18-year-old kid that we could wait a year or two to sign that we still have the rights to until he's ready to play? I'm scratching my head on that one. I don't know if this is a Danny Briere, new to being a GM kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's excited about his guys. I get that, but I
Yeah,
mean,
but he did the
I just
same
don't
thing with
see.
that Kovalson guy too, or that Kovalev guy,
Yeah,
right? The same,
yeah,
same. But he signed him too.
Yeah. That's just in my mind. He was already gonna. He didn't come over. He's already gonna play. He's already playing in the KHL
That's what I
this
mean.
season. You weren't gonna get him for this season, so why sign him this season? Why not talk to him in the off season, and let whatever's going on in Russia right now play out a little bit more and see where you're at, instead of inking him for a 3-year deal and wasting a valuable contract on a guy
Exactly.
that's not going to be here right now.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that I think it needs to kind of be taken a look at for sure. I get wanting your own guys in there and the guys that you like, but you can't just go throwing away valuable contracts, space or numbers wise.
I mean, unless you're going to use them as fodder, that would be the only thing I could think of as to why that they're signed. They're, I mean, you may get more value for a player that's signed than not. You know what I'm saying? I don't, like I said, man, I'm scratching my head too. So,
Mm.
well, Lance, I tell you what, man, I think we covered a lot of things here. I think that this team needs to definitely get better defensively in order to be a better team all day long. Okay? And I also think that there's some players that we feel that are going to be defensive minded that potentially could make the team out of training camp this year as well too. So I really like that. Lance, you got anything in the works, bro? Any fresh meat?
No, not for the Flyers way. I'm watching closely to some of these games and everything else that's going on right now, and
Oh, ugly.
of course, training camp. But I do have some contacts being made and everything like that, and trying to get some more players on Prospect Watch. So
Yeah, buddy. Yeah,
keep
buddy.
keep up on that. We'll see who we can bring on next, or what
Yeah, man.
what we may discuss on next. So.
Excited about that for sure. And well, Lance, I tell you what, man. Thank you very much for all you do. Really appreciate it, man. We couldn't be the Batman and Robin without you, man, for sure. So, really appreciate all you folks out there listening. Lance, why don't you tell the folks where we can find you and where we can get all your great articles, sir?
Sure. You can find me as always on SteelFlyers.com, all my articles, all our shows. And you can find me on Twitter at Lance.Green39.
You can also find all of Lance's stuff. We post out on all of the Flyers Facebook pages and groups and stuff like that. So you can find us on Facebook as well. You can also find us on YouTube, and you can go to the website too. You can check us out at SteelFlyers.com, the SteelFlyers All Sports Network. You can check out all the great shows from the Prospect Watch to Hockey Writers Ink to the Nittany Report and, of course, the Steel Flyers podcast. So hop on over to the SteelFlyers.com website to check out all of Lance's great articles. And I'll tell you what, dude, it's good stuff, man. I can't wait. Also, the Phantoms are going to be hopping out here soon with some of their games as well, too, and be looking for a new segment coming out during the Hockey Writers Inc., especially this season. We're going to try to do some Phantoms coverage for you guys as well because, of course, down on the farm and we want to watch and pay attention to what's going on with the Phantoms. So we'll have a little Phantoms facts roped into this show then at some point down the road here this coming season. So we'll be looking for that too. So thanks everybody for checking us out. I'm your co-host SteelFlyers. You can find me on Twitter at SteelFlyers52. Thank you very much for checking us out, guys. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Hockey Writers Inc.